So Bitcoin just hit 100K again. And I'm just sitting here thinking about how most people are still out here calling it a scam and a Ponzi scheme, and they think it's a tulip bubble. And which is just wild to me because it's the fifth largest asset in the world. You can see what a tulip bubble chart from the 1600 looks like. Obviously, the Bitcoin chart looks nothing like that. The fact that Bitcoin has done all that with no cash flows, no dividends, no earnings, no company behind it, doesn't generate any income. It's not stealing any of your data. It's not lobbying the government to change the rules to make its moat bigger or change the regulations and laws to benefit it. If you step back and look at all the negative things that people say about Bitcoin, it's reached $100,000 despite all those things. So you might just want to think about why that is. Why has that happened? Don't you think you might wonder if just dismissing it or calling it a scam or calling it a bubble, or maybe that's just a little too simplistic to explain this meteoric rise of this asset that's become the fastest growing asset, the best performing investment, basically of all time. A lot of people out there, you just keep dismissing it and it just keeps going up. More and more people around the world choosing to save their money in Bitcoin, choosing to save the fruits of their labor in Bitcoin, taking their time and energy, trading them for Bitcoin. Why? Why would they do that? Because it cannot be debased. It cannot be diluted. It's the hardest money ever known to man. You take the two most finite, scarce resources that you have as a human, your time and energy, and you go out in the world and you work, and in return you get this thing called money, and you want that money to hold its value over time. So we as human beings, we used nature's best money for like 5,000 years, and that was gold. Gold was the best way that nature could come up with as a store of value because it has all the right properties to be able to store value. Just like we used nature's best transportation, which was horses, for thousands of years. There's this great picture, which I'll put on the screen right now. Fifth Avenue, New York City, black and white photo from 1903. And basically the whole entire street is all horses, horse and carriage or whatever, horse and buggy, and one car. And then 10 years later, same exact spot, same Fifth Avenue, New York City, 1913, and the whole street is all cars and one horse. So what does that say to you? Humans will use nature's best version of the technology until we can invent a better version. And when it flips, it can flip fast, like in 10 years. Looking back, 10 years is the blink of an eye. Gold was nature's best swing at making hard money. And then we improved upon gold. Bitcoin has only been around for 16 years. So you may think that right now we're in the middle of it, 16 years feels like a long time. It may feel like, oh, if it's so great, why hasn't it taken over the world yet? Why hasn't it taken over the dollar? Why hasn't it taken over Visa? Why can't I go buy coffee with it down the street at Starbucks? So so Bitcoin's failed because I can't buy McDonald's with it. But that picture of the horse to the car is 10 years. So at that time, it probably felt like that 10 years took a long time. But looking back on it, over 100 years later, when that happens with Bitcoin, the history books will just look back on it and say, and then Bitcoin was invented and it took over the world. 16 years is going to just look like a blip to history, just like the horse on Fifth Avenue and that 10-year period. It just looks like a blip. We just take one photo and the next photo. The history books don't bother telling you about all the people who said the car would never work. Oh, there aren't even any roads. Like, where can you drive it? Oh, they would literally mock people who had a broken down car on the side of the road, and they would walk by and shout, "Get a horse!" That's literally you mocking Bitcoin. Oh, it crashed 5%. Bitcoin's dead. The history books now, they just look back and they say, and then Henry Ford invented the automobile. Internal combustion engine changed everything, and nobody used a horse for transportation ever again. And 100 years from now, the history books will literally look back and say, and then Satoshi Nakamoto invented Bitcoin. It was the hardest money that ever existed, so it won, period. End of story. It'll just be side by side of, one day they used this weird fiat paper money, and then 10 years later, everybody's using Bitcoin. I don't know when that exact side by side is going to be, but that will happen. Oops, it just sucked up all the value that was in all these other forms of money. Turns out it wasn't a scam. Turns out it wasn't a Ponzi scheme. Turns out it was just a neutral, open, permissionless, digital protocol for transferring value across the internet. And turns out that was a pretty useful invention. Turns out we needed a way to take something with the properties of gold, but be able to transfer it to each other over the internet. And we needed a way to take the control of money out of the hands of the government. Just like how governments being too intertwined with the church became a problem, and people decided to fight to separate church and state, it took hundreds of years, but eventually enough people agreed that that was a good idea, right? Well, the idea of governments having a monopoly control over money will suffer the same fate. Enough people will realize that it's a terrible idea. It's a bad system. It doesn't work. We've been lied to that it's a good thing for the government to have an infinite money printer, even though it's ended terribly so many times. Over and over, governments mismanaging that responsibility and destroying their entire economy, giving a few people in the government so much power that they can destroy the savings of an entire population. So you can work your whole life for a money that they can print to infinity and inflate away the value of your life savings in the blink of an eye. Turns out that that might not be the best possible system that we could have. Oh, that won't happen in America. That won't happen in the West. Wake up and look around, because it's literally already happening. The dollar has lost 99% of its value. That's basically just since 1971. It's lost way more since before that. You could argue it's lost 99% of its value, and then it lost 99% of its value again. It does not hold its purchasing power over time. The central bank mandate for stable prices is total BS. Their mandate is to maintain demand for US Treasuries. That's it. Which means that if other countries or banks or the free market doesn't buy enough US Treasuries, the Fed steps in and buys them. With what money?
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Exactly. That system is not meant to last. It's literally impossible for it to go on. When I was growing up, my mother taught me that money doesn't grow on trees. Well, apparently, John Maynard Keynes' mother didn't teach him that, because he taught the whole world that government money does grow on trees, and that it's a good thing. Look at this meme right here on the screen. This is it. This is basically everything you need to know right here in one meme. A meme is worth 1,000 words. You put in time, energy, hard work, and money comes out the other end. Maybe it's $16 an hour. Maybe it's $60,000 a year. Maybe it's $100,000 a year. That sounds like a lot of money. Government, click of a button, billions of dollars, or even trillions of dollars come out the other end overnight. An amount of money that it would take you lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes to even imagine. They'll just create it in the blink of an eye. And some of you are sitting around calling Bitcoin a scam or a bubble. No, the fiat garbage money is the bubble. Bitcoin was invented to pop that bubble. Fiat money backed by nothing is a blip on history, a 50-year experiment in government overreach that only happened because we didn't have the right technology to stop them. Hayek said we'll never have good money again until we take the thing out of the hands of government. But we can't take it by force. We can only slyly introduce something they can't stop. January 3rd, 2009 was when it happened. This monetary virus was released onto the world. Maybe they could have stopped it then, but thankfully for us, they were too stupid, too naive, had too much hubris, and now it's too late. It's infected the world. More and more people every day learning what Bitcoin is, learning what central banking is, coming to the idea that we should separate money from state, coming to the idea that hard money wins, coming to the idea that digital gold is a useful invention, that the car will disrupt the horse, that this thing that was a collectible, a novelty, literally had no monetary value for more than a year of its life. It had no dollar exchange rate. It was an experimental project for shadowy supercoders who'd been trying to solve this problem for decades. How to create a currency native to the internet that governments couldn't control and that people could transfer peer-to-peer with no one else in between. That little thing went from no value at all. There were websites that would just give away Bitcoin for free. 15 years later, that thing is worth 100,000 US dollars, which is absolutely insane. That's one of the greatest stories in human history. It might end up being regarded as the eighth wonder of the world. It's absolutely incredible. And most people don't even want to look at it. It's a scam. I haven't looked at it at all, but I know it's a bubble. I know it's a Ponzi scheme. To anyone who thinks that, the evidence is right there staring you in the face. 0 to 100,000. That's the evidence. That's the proof. No cars on the road one year, a road full of cars the next. People around the world are trying to tell you, trying to show you, I'm not going to store the value of my labor in paper currency anymore. I want hard money. Now companies want to store their corporate treasury in hard money. Now governments want to hold hard money. Now institutional investors who have crazy strict rules about what they can and can't buy are buying weird derivative products built on top of it just to get into the action. None of this is going to turn around. None of this is stopping We're not going back. The cat is out of the bag. Bitcoin is here to stay. And you're not too late. There's no such thing as too late. When was it too late to buy gold? When is it too late to exit the Venezuelan bolivar for the dollar? It's never too late to trade weaker money for harder money. Harder money never stops accruing more value for two reasons. One, governments will not stop printing money, which is fake money, so more and more of that money ends up in harder assets, but also because human beings never stopped adopting harder money. More and more people looking to escape the trap of their government-issued paper money into something that's scarce, whose value can't be diluted. More and more people realizing their other stores of value are inferior. Real estate, full of risks and hidden costs. Stocks, full of risks. Turns out the S&P 500 basically only goes up at the rate of the expansion of the money supply. Government bonds are risk-free if you don't account for the risk of them diluting the currency into oblivion. Yes, they will always pay you back your money on paper, but the amount of stuff you'll be able to buy with it will be slashed and slashed and slashed every year. Hard money continues to suck the value out of all these weaker stores of value. That's why gold has been the best store of value for thousands of years. That's why we've been trying to invent a better version of gold for the digital age, trying to improve on nature's best version of the technology, trying to invent the car because the horse isn't good enough anymore. So no, Bitcoin is not a scam. It's not a bubble. It's not a Ponzi scheme. If you think that or know someone else who does, open your eyes. The free market is trying to tell you something, sending you the signal of what's going to happen in the future, what's already happening. 100K is a big flashing neon sign that says money has changed forever. There's no going back. This is the discovery of fire. This is the invention of the wheel. This is the invention of the internal combustion engine. This is the invention of the internet. This is a 0 to 1 moment. Humanity has changed forever. Future humans will work directly for Bitcoin. Or, in a scarier world than that, AI and robots will work for Bitcoin, and humans will have no jobs at all because human labor will be economically unprofitable, and your children and their children will curse you as their ancestors for not buying enough Bitcoin because government money will become worthless as they print it to infinity, just as all governments have throughout all of human history. No fiat currency survives the temptation of the money printer. And Bitcoin is the only thing that will finally break the curse of the money printer, take away the temptation to create money from nothing and destroy the lives of your fellow humans. And right now, you still have people on this earth willing to give you Bitcoin in exchange for worthless pieces of green paper. You can get more than 1,000 Satoshis in exchange for $1. The dollar, those things that they print by the trillion.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally. As a central bank, we have the ability to create money.
But some sucker will give you more than 1,000 Satoshis for one of those little green pieces of paper, which is crazy. Because someday that won't be true. And my personal suggestion is you study Bitcoin. To better understand any or all of what I've said in this video, if any of it rang true at all, but not all of it makes sense, keep studying Bitcoin. And in the immortal words of our savior Satoshi Nakamoto, you might want to get some just in case it catches on. And if you want to understand why I said Bitcoin is digital gold and was engineered to copy but improve on the properties that made gold hard money in the first place, check out this thought experiment right here where I talk about what if gold was discovered for the first time today. And as always, never forget, Bitcoin's inevitable.